joined by the writer and charity founder Nick Buckley, who has been based in Manchester for many years and understands the city better than many. Nick Buckley, welcome to you. If you could hear one thing from either candidate who wants to be the next leader of the Tory party and Prime Minister, what would it be?
That's a tough question because there's so many things I want to hear. If there was one thing at the moment I'd want them to talk about, it would be personal responsibility. Agreeing with your last guest you're just talking to then about the government constantly taking our money off us in taxes and then deciding how they're going to give some of it back to us. This isn't the way Britain should be. Britain should be full of free people who decide how they spend their own money and how they look after their own lives. We're becoming some sort of socialist state, and that's my big fear.
If we are becoming a socialist state or a quasi-socialist state, Nick, to what extent does that reflect in the values of Manchester? Because, you know, if the other side of Manchester from Leigh, if you look at a town like Oldham, you know, 1900, the then MP for Oldham, Winston Churchill. You know, this was one of the great cradles, one of the crucibles of the Industrial Revolution, Manchester. It was a place where enterprise, for better or for worse, really got a grip and powered our economic ascent. Where is it now?
It's been in the cauldron since the 80s, if not before. We needed to change in the 70s and 80s because the rest of the world was beating us on price and the cost of labour. So things were changing in this country. And Thatcher made lots of changes. Her only mistake was not putting in the new infrastructure and the new resources to keep those places like Bolton, Bury, Rochdale, to keep them thriving and giving them a new purpose in life. We left them behind. And every government since then has left them behind. People talk about Manchester, and sometimes they mean Greater Manchester. Manchester itself is booming and always has been booming, but you go 5-6 miles outside of the city centre, and you'll see poverty that you can't see anywhere else in the country because they've just been left behind. Council estates that no one's worked on for generations, no public transport, no way of getting into the city centre to get a good job. The schools are terrible. I've worked in some of these schools. Absolutely terrible. This is what we need to do. And they call it now the levelling up agenda. And I can talk about that all day if you wanted me to.
Well, let's focus on this aspect of levelling up. You could argue, Nick, I would argue that the first thing you've got to get right for any levelling up to happen, you talked about the schools, for people to learn in an environment that's conducive to learning, is you've got to know that when you make that walk to school or back home from school, you're not going to be mugged. You've got to know that the criminals are on the run, not you. You've got in Manchester, within Greater Manchester Police, a new Chief Constable, Stephen Watson, making waves, making headlines. For why? Because he just wants to solve crimes. He's not interested in pride flags or any of that stuff. He does tell his officers to polish their boots and have a shave and look smart because it matters from the bottom up. There'll be some people shouting at the telly saying, oh, stop it, that's just posturing, it doesn't change a thing. The figures show that it does matter. The criminals are not on the run in Manchester, but it's turning a corner.
Absolutely. I had my doubts about the new Chief Constable because he was appointed by Andy Burnham. And I was thinking to myself, here we go, we'll have more of the same. But up to now, I think it's been about a year and a half, he's impressed me. The police have stopped being woke nonsense fools. They don't dress up anymore at the Pride events. And his old-fashioned policing instinct is kicking in. And that's how police officers should be. They should be clean-shaven. They should attend work smartly with polished shoes. Because that's what you expect when you go to the Hilton Hotel. So why don't we expect it from our Greater Manchester Police? So he is doing those things. He's bringing back some respect for the police. He's got a long, long way to go. So let's not pretend he's solved all the problems. But he seems to be the right man for the right job. And you're right. If you're a kid now in Greater Manchester and you're going to school and your only role models are local drug dealers and the local burglars, and you're trying your hardest at school and you're being beaten up and bullied because you're trying to make something of yourself, how are you going to be successful in life? So we need to tackle the nitty gritty of it, the real basic issues before we can start looking at anything else. And education is something we need to look at, because education in Greater Manchester on the whole is failing a fifth of all children.
Nick Buckley, you continue to raise important questions. We appreciate it. Thanks very much.